It's a good time to bring in Peter Walton, longtime Premier League official. Peter, it seems like this time of year we hear that there's something that referees are very focused on. What is it this season?
Well, really, it's pretty much what they was focused on last year. The two main emphases this year will be the grappling in the box that we have seen. That's the blocking of runs made by either defenders or attackers to create space. And also time wasting, would you believe, in terms of how much time the ball is in play. I think in the Premier League last season it was around 57 minutes that the actual ball was in play. So the authorities are beginning now to look at that to increase that amount of time. So you'll probably be seeing, goalkeepers being hurried up to take their kicks, free kicks, corner kicks, substitutions, and possibly the correct amount of time being displayed by the fourth official when it comes to half-time and full-time.
Stevie, which of those two flashpoints, grappling, time wasting, more important to you?
How do I answer this? I'm glad to see that they're going to try and save on the time wasting and give us more football. I'd have to say, though, on the grappling side of it, the reason that the grappling goes on nowadays is because the referees, for some reason, stop giving penalty kicks against it. So, yes, I'm glad they're going to look at it, but it's something they should have been doing anyway. The other one, spot on.
Peter, when we talk about the wrestling in the penalty area, how effective were Premier League officials in making sure that didn't happen last season?
Well, I think we all saw at the start of the season, the first 2 or 3 months, there was many decisions being given in the penalty area, either free kicks to the defence or penalty kicks for the attacking team for those type of offences. And I thought the referees detected and picked them up very well. The players began to realise that, and I think the amount of occasions started to decrease, as well as the referees probably becoming a little bit more lenient. And back to Stevie's point there, this has been going on for a number of years, and it's part of a sort of a tactical evolvement of the game. And we see more and more of that, and the authorities and the referees need to come up to scratch with that and apply law.
A tactical involvement of the game. I mean, people have been holding and pulling since the game began, but referees just stopped giving free kicks or penalties for it, Peter. Never mind tactical.
Well, I think it's being highlighted much more nowadays, Steve, and I think the players now are using that tactic more and more, and therefore referees should and will be dealing with that issue as the Premier League season starts.
I hope you're right.
Look, when it comes to grappling or anything else, Premier League officials don't have VAR to help them out. We saw it at the World Cup. Peter, I wonder if you agree with most people that it was a success at the World Cup, and should it be headed to the Premier League soon?
Well, I've said on this show already that the World Cup was a great success when VAR was introduced. As we all know, they corrected 17 decisions that wouldn't have been corrected in normal course of play. Grappling was one of them. We saw that with Harry Kane in the early rounds, and the authorities suddenly realised that. And as the competition progressed, we saw less and less of that happening because of the risk that defenders were taking, or the risk the attackers were taking, in terms of employing that in the penalty area. Will the Premier League miss it? I think they will at the start of the season. I think they will miss it. However, I think the Premier League are correct in not introducing it just yet. VAR takes an awful lot of training, experiments and experience with the officials, and the officials are not quite ready yet to be introduced into that Premier League setup. I think as soon as the authorities feel that their referees are ready to implement VAR, you'll see it straight away.
Welcome into the ESPN FC studios. Time for one of our favorite segments, Ask the Ref.
Right. We need a ref.
We need a ref. There he is, Peter Walton. Long
Can we not just shout at him instead of asking him?
No. I think you guys have probably done that more than enough over your respective careers. Peter, we did this kind of weird, quirky thing called the Luck Index here at ESPN, and basically the idea is that calls over the long term tend to even out. It turns out the Luck Index says no, calls don't even out. So from the official standpoint, explain yourself. How come these things don't even out?
Well, they don't even out because it's down to luck, isn't it? And it's as simple as that. Referees can't see everything, and sometimes they get it right and sometimes they get it wrong. Over the course of the season, it's often been said that it evens itself out, but as we've seen with this analysis done by ESPN, perhaps it doesn't even out, and therefore the referee, you've got to get the decision right first time.
Stevie,
so actually, if it evens itself out, that's just lucky.
Right. There you go.
Where it comes right down to
This
it.
is the inception of luck.
Are you lucky enough to get a good referee, or are you bad lucky to get...
How long is this? Over a period of what?
Yeah, right. It's a good question. It's
Over
good
a period of how long
A
does it even
season,
itself out?
a decade, eternity?
I don't
yeah,
know.
well, we got to ask the luck index. All right, we have some questions from fans here, Peter. So,
Yeah.
the first question from Twitter is, Peter, would you have sent Sergio Ramos off in the Champions League final? Hashtag asking for a friend named Mo Salah. What do you think?
Well, look, every Liverpool fan out there would say, yes, he'd got to go because of the consequences of what he did, his actions. But from a refereeing point of view, from a law point of view, Ramos made a clumsy challenge on Mo Salah. Yes, he was clumsy in terms of his falling over on top of him as well. Probably reckless. For me, it was a yellow card. It was reckless. I don't think it elevated itself to a straight red card. So, unfortunately, you know, friend at Mo Salah, Ramos probably had the right decision with the yellow card.
Hey, Pete, what about Ramos when he's elbowed Karius in the head? If the referee sees it, that's a red card, right?
If the referee sees it, Steve, that's a red card. That was done, you know, again, I can't go into the mind of Ramos. I don't know what his intention was, but clearly his action there looked to be endangering the safety. It looked to be his elbow used as a weapon rather than a tool. And I think the right outcome there, had it been seen, would have been a red card.
Pete, can I ask you, how many officials are there watching in the Champions League final?
Oh, well, I don't know how many officials, but every supporter is an official
you
sooner or
got
later,
one in the
Steve.
middle. You got one in the middle. You got one in each line. You got a guy behind each goal. When he's
You've got six.
Five.
You got
You've
the
got the
fourth
fourth
official,
official.
six.
So we got
Six.
six, and not one of them shot.
Six.
I mean, that's a
Well,
bit
look,
strange.
you know,
isn't it?
well, I'm not suggesting any of them didn't see it or saw it. It's the angle you see it at, it's the context you see it at, and it's how you see it. I mean, we can sit here and look at the
Or how you
video
don't see
monitor
it.
and say, yeah, but, you know, sometimes you see things, Stephen, sometimes you don't. And even if
Who said
it's right
that?
in front of you.
An unlucky official. All right, so next question here. What do you think about giving refs microphones for when they use VAR so they can explain their decisions to the crowd? NFL already does it, and it seems to work pretty well. Peter?
Actually, I'm all for it. I think as VAR evolves, communication will evolve, and that's almost a stage two. I know that IFL are looking at the communication aspect of VAR, and one of those aspects is to involve the crowd more. The spectator needs to know what's going on, and therefore, you know, the communication angle should be looked at. In fact, I attended a game only last week, the MLS All-Stars game. They have a pre-game called the homegrown game, and that was introduced the very first time, where the referee actually spoke to the crowd and advised the crowd why he'd given such a decision. It takes no more than 10 seconds or so. It's not a conversation, it's a bullet point thing, and the crowd, I think, appreciated it.
Guys from crowd, coaches, television, it kind of seems like a no-brainer, right? To have the refs be able to communicate it, Shaka?
I'd like to see it in practice. I have to say, initially, when this was kind of raised some time ago, I thought, why do the referees have to explain themselves at the point? They're there to do a job. You make a decision. You trust in the referees to make that decision. They don't have to explain it at that point. But, you know, again, seeing how VAR worked, seeing how things have, when the referee has to go to the sidelines, I don't think the disruption was all that, as some people are making it out to be. I'd like to see this in practice, and I may very well change my mind.
Stevie?
I don't like it.
No?
I would rather the referees came out after the game and explained not just one decision, but the decisions that needed to be made in the game. I think referees are under enough pressure without having to explain themselves in the middle of a game and then carry on refereeing. I don't like it. I would prefer that they spoke afterwards when they were calm, cool and composed.
Peter,
I mean, you wouldn't ask a player in the middle of a game, would you?
No, it's fair. It's fair. But, Peter, what do you think about that, the idea of a post-match press conference for the officials?
Yeah, just first of all, I mean, we're only looking at the official making an announcement once every 3 games, the way that the VAR is beginning to evolve. So it's not as if they're explaining every decision. It's explaining those match-changing decisions that they've had to resort to VAR to have a look at. So we're not looking at a great deal. And in terms of coming out afterwards and speaking about it, Again, I agree with that. I think Major League Soccer already implement that, where a pool reporter is allowed to ask a question. That question then is answered by the match official, and a subsequent question is if necessary. And I do think that the transparency and the understanding of why match officials make decisions will make the game better. Fans, media may not agree with the answer, but at least they'll know the rationale behind such decisions being given in games.
All right, I like this next question from Twitter. How influential on the game can players be by conversing with the ref over plays, whether it be shouting, banter, or mild discussion? Peter?
Yeah, well, it depends on who you're refereeing, of course. You know, there are players out there whose main job is to get into the head of the referee, and it's down to the referee to realise that. Yes, you know, there's times when you have a dialogue and you'll talk with players as the game's progressing, but ultimately, you know, the player's there to play and the referee's there to referee the game, and he'll referee the game. In terms of, you know, a player asking questions all the time, yes, that's happened to me in my career many times, and sometimes it is off-putting, and it's down to the referee to say to the player, OK, enough's enough, I'm not here just to answer all your questions, get on with the game. Some players do like to have a bit of banter with the referee, though, that's for sure.
Steve, you had a certain grin when I read that question. I couldn't help but notice.
I know a lot of players who thought they were getting in the referee's head, but I don't actually believe anybody ever really did. All the referees I remember taking it from the likes of Dalglish and Souness, and you know, there were two players in Scotland, or one in particular, a guy called Willie Miller, who was famous. You know, the opposition coaches would always say to the referee, you know, why's Willie Miller got the whistle today? But I don't believe referees actually got swayed one way or the other. But forever and a day, and I'm sure it still goes on today, you will try and influence a referee.
You know, we do see it sometimes before a match. Managers will go out into the media and say something to try to condition. You've done it before.
100%. I used to grab the fourth official before every game, particularly when there was a guy called Alejandro Morena playing against me. I would get the fourth official. If I couldn't get the referee before the game, I would get the fourth official, definitely. I would get the fourth official anyway and tell them, you know, see this guy here, you better keep your eye on because he'll flop all day long.
Peter, go ahead.
Seb, I mean, I'll leave you this one. I remember refereeing a game back in the Premier League, and my father came to the game and we was driving home, and my father said, you know, there was two referees on that field today, and El Hadj Diouf was the better one. So sometimes players can have a meaning over the game for sure, and it did for me.
That's from his own dad.
I know, right? Yeah. These Twitter folks think they can criticize the ref when they're getting it worse at home. That's a tough one. All right, well, look, Alejandro's not here to defend himself, which makes us say...
But it's true. But we all know it's true.
Tell you what.
He don't need to defend himself. It's true. He knows.
There's 100,000 minutes of football to show Alejandro exactly what he was there. Defend himself.
Look, if you ever do miss an episode, as Ale has today, unfortunately, you can just head over to the website,
he fell over again, didn't he?
ESPNFC.com. Check out the podcast, available daily for download. Big news out of Spain, as reported by both Marca and AS. Chelsea set to splurge 80 million euros on 23-year-old Spanish goalie Kepa Arrizabalaga. He plays for Atletico Bilbao. This would shatter the record just set, what Liverpool paid for Alisson to bring him to Anfield. So, Arrizabalaga, it's a pretty thin resume, just 23 years old. He was a member of Spain's 2018 World Cup squad, but Shaka, this is a big jump up from Bilbao to Chelsea.
Yes, it is, but in Kepa, they've got a wonderful shot stopper. Quite clearly, given his age, 23 years old, he's going to be 24 in a couple of months. They are thinking long-term with Kepa, and understandably so. Now, in terms of shot stopping, as I say, I don't feel they've lost a lot in terms of who they're losing in Thibaut Courtois. I think the test comes, I'm not sure that Kepa is as strong in the air as Thibaut Courtois was. No disrespect there, that's quite easy to do. But they have somebody who I think you can expect a better consistency from. As good as Thibaut Courtois was, I just feel over the last 2 years, you've heard too much from him about a move away, and I don't feel you've seen the consistency in form that you expect from a goalkeeper of his quality.
Stevie, Kepa made his top-flight debut in September of 2016. From a manager's perspective, would you be worried about giving the #1 job at a club like Chelsea to a guy with really only 2 years of starting experience?
Absolutely. I would be. If I'm sorry, my worry is not about the ability of his goalkeeper. It's what's in front of him. You know, he's 23 years of age. He's getting thrown into the top flight in the Premier League with a team like Chelsea who are expected every time they step on the field to win. But for a young man, particularly a goalkeeper, to have a back line in front of him that is an absolute shambles at this minute in time, I think that makes it doubly difficult for this guy to come in and play.
The thing is, though, I think clubs are recognising the importance of a good goalkeeper and the value of a goalkeeper, and getting one in at a time and at a price that makes perfect sense. Now, as much as you may say Kepa's only been playing for the last couple of seasons, Edison and Alisson have even less first team European experience to show before their big moves, and nobody questioned that, and especially in the case of Edison, who made the jump and has key to Manchester City's success. So this makes perfect sense for me. You're losing a quality goalkeeper in Thibaut Courtois, but you've got to be willing to take the chance, because if it pays off big, and you can't afford to simply take an easy option.
So we look at Chelsea's potential starting 11 and maybe their bench as well in the first year under Maurizio Sarri. Shaka, what do you think of Chelsea's chances in the Premier League?
I'm still not convinced, and though this is a Chelsea team, for the most part, that won the league 2 years ago, I'm not convinced that you can win the league. I'm trying to convince myself that you can break into the top 4 with Alvaro Morata and Olivier Giroud as your two starting strikers, or one of the two anyway. That for me will continue to be the biggest question mark. Can you get any kind of consistency out of Morata? And is Giroud the man to lead your line for 30-odd games? I'm not so sure.
Is that the biggest concern at Chelsea, that top spot?
No, not for me. I think defensively is the biggest problem. I think they've got plenty of weapons going forward. If Sarri can get Morata playing, then that front three, Willian, Hazard and Morata at his best, that's a great front three.
What do you think of that 11?
With Batley in it?
Yeah.
No, thank you. I don't think he will. I don't think he'll be in it. Kovacic will definitely be in it if he comes. But the back line's a shambles for me. David Luiz in the back 4. It's not him. Alonso in the back 4 is untested. He's a wing back. He's a better wing back than a full back. So question marks at the back. You've got a young goalkeeper with the weight of the price tag on his back as well. The question marks are all defensively for me.
Shaka, how worried would you be playing in front of that back line or behind it?
Listen, it's not a great back line. But you have to, if you set this team up, as Antonio Conte showed a couple of years ago, you can get them to do a job at the very least. You know, and yes, there are a lot of question marks and a lot of reason for concern around Chelsea, including defensively. But again, for the most part, this is the team that won the league 2 seasons ago. And I know that Manchester City and Liverpool in particular are much better than they were 2 years ago. And at the same time, I'm saying I still don't see Chelsea breaking to the top 4, but they will be a whole lot better than we saw them last season. And let's keep in mind, but for a disastrous the last 6 or 7 games of the season, they very well may have finished 4th.
A whole lot better. You think so?
No. I don't see any change at all. I think there's more question marks today than there were at the end of the season. I mean, I just don't see how there's anything settled about Chelsea. Absolutely zero. The only thing that's settled is the manager. And what brings more confusion is we all know this guy wants to play open attacking football, which is why I say that back line is in trouble. Under Conte, he devised a system that hid the deficiencies of the back line. When you play open attacking football, you see exactly where your problems are or where your strengths are. And this back line is a problem.
What are you thinking if you're Keylor Navas here? You've been in this spot.
If you're Keylor Navas, you're quite used to the speculation and you're quite used to the suggestion and having to earn your spot. He arrived in Madrid 4 years ago and had to sit behind Iker Casillas, even though, in my mind, at the time, he was the better of the two goalkeepers. Earned his spot, and even after earning his spot, that didn't come easy, consistently linked with a move for David De Gea. Yet still, he continued to prove his worth. Now, whatever happens with Courtois, Keylor Navas and his CV stack up as well as anybody's in the game. 3 Champions Leagues in the last 3 seasons. That's nothing to sniff at.
You think he wants to go somewhere else? You think he's content to sit on the bench with the CV you just mentioned?
I think he will fight for his spot at least for the very start. And if nothing kind of materializes in terms of interest, then he will go out or have his agent go out and seek pastures new. But for right now, I don't think Keylor Navas goes without a fight.
Stevie?
He can fight all he wants, but Courtois, for me, is being bought to start. They're not spending 35 million on this guy to sit on the bench. And Keylor Navas might tell you that he's going to stay and fight, but if I'm Keylor Navas, I'm getting out that door as quickly as I can, because the fact that he has the CV that he does have, if I'm him, I ain't sitting on my backside. I've got 3 Champions League winners' medals, and I was a huge reason behind those 3 winners' medals, and you're going to sit me on the bench. I'll tell you what, this guy's not going to be a happy camper. No way.
The thing for me is, given the uncertainty around Real Madrid, if you're Keylor Navas, or if I'm advising Keylor Navas, I'm saying just sit and see how this all goes. Yes, and they bought Thibaut Courtois with the intention of starting, but you're not quite sure how Lopetegui is going to take over. You're not quite sure how that will take effect. And then if Thibaut Courtois doesn't start off sterlingly, you know that crowd in the Bernabeu can let their feelings be known.
Who's better?
Answer this question, right? You're Thibaut Courtois. You
Right.
know Navas is there. You want to go to Real Madrid. You're going to ask, hold on a second, I want to come, you want me, I'm a player. That's the first thing you ask.
Listen.
Because Navas is there. So and if they said, well, no, you're going to have to stay and fight for your place, it's like, hold on a second. If you're a goalie?
No, don't get me wrong.
You're a player.
If you're Courtois, you know you go in there and you've been promised the starting shirt. But that's not guaranteed.
It's over then.
It's
over then.
And my point is, that's not guaranteed.
It's over.
Given the managerial changes, if Real Madrid don't start exceedingly well, if Thibaut Courtois has a couple of iffy games, and this crowd turns, if you're Keylor Navas, you're happy just to sit and see how that plays out and see if you work your way back in.
You say Courtois is inconsistent. Who's better of the two?
At his absolute best, Thibaut Courtois is without question the better of the two. But that doesn't take away from the fact that Keylor Navas is a world-class goalkeeper and has proved that over the last 3 years.
Welcome into Extra Time. Shaka, Stevie, Seb here with you.
We're going to leave him alone today.
Well,
Let's leave him alone.
We nailed it, right? No ties, no ties?
Oh, you did. I thought everybody got it right yesterday, with one exception.
Okay, well, you know.
I'll get it right.
It just took me a week of working here to figure it out.
Oh.
Shaka, first question's coming for you.
Okay.
Pumba'a wants to know, missed Shaka at Cadument in Barbados? What is Cadument?
I don't know.
You know what it is, no? What is it?
I have absolutely no idea.
Should we Google it? Stevie, you got any thoughts on Cadument? Cadument?
I'm Scottish.
Is it
I don't know. That doesn't mean you don't
is
know
it
what
crop
it is.
overtime in Barbados?
I'm trying to Google it right now. As I do that, we can...
Some sort of festival. I'm going to get.
Well, it's Barbados has a carnival. They call it crop over. I think it's in August, but I can't remember when.
Yeah. It's in June, we're told.
I need to get there sometime soon.
Shaka, you
Missed
must.
it.
The holidays you have, you must have been there. You must have been at Cadument.
Can't be everywhere at
You
once.
had to be.
I've tried. Trust me.
Well, we're going to sit here all day.
Oh, yeah, wait, have you found it?
No, I didn't.
that
I found
that was
Cadument Day
good.
in Barbados. Yeah, it's crop over. You are correct.
See, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
I'll be there next year.
Okay.
Tell Pumba'a I'll be there next year.
What was that name again?
Pumba'a Coming next year. Pumba'a
All right, Kartik wants to know, is there a need for what Willian has been saying about Antonio Conte recently? Shouldn't there be a respect for a former manager who delivered a Premier League title and FA Cup success in 2 seasons? I believe he was on ESPN Brazil with some of our colleagues and kind of said he hopes Mauricio Sarri isn't like Conte. Is that too harsh? That doesn't even seem that bad.
Players do and say that all the time. I mean, you just have to look back to the FA Cup final when
The tweet,
Willian
the
and
Insta
his
picture,
tweet,
right,
or wherever it was.
He put the emojis over.
You knew how he felt about the manager. He's not.
He
the
blamed
first-
his daughter for that. I'm told.
Yeah, okay.
Here's a question for you, right?
Okay.
So, whenever Chelsea were making a substitute, who was coming off?
Willian.
Willian.
Well, or he was not.
All coming on.
As
soon as he went like that and looked to the side, he knew exactly.
Well,
I mean,
you knew. They didn't. I mean, he's not the first player to not see eye to eye with his manager. It won't be the last.
But he wasn't making any stories up. He was just telling the truth.
Yeah. Here, this one you'll like, Stevie.
Oh, was that it? We're moving on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Joe wants to know, when is Jose Mourinho getting sacked?
Oof.
All the Manchester United fans hate you already, so it doesn't really matter at this point, right?
You say that as if that's something new.
No, it's
Been like this for 35 years.
right. Twitter doesn't help, though, does it?
No, it doesn't. It don't help. Listen, I don't know what the bookies say, but I'll tell you what, Mourinho must be one of the favourites to be the first manager to get sacked. And if they start badly,
Really? Over all the relegation-threatened teams, you think he'll
He's
be the
not
first to
getting
go?
sacked.
I tell
He's
you
not
what,
getting sacked.
Hold on a second. Have you seen the history of Mourinho in the third season?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm sorry, it's
Sometimes
just another
He's
piece
going to
of
see out
it's
this
another
season.
piece of the puzzle.
He's going to see out this season.
Do you think this is it? Is this his last season?
Possibly, yeah.
You say he's going to see it out, but is that it for him?
Quite possibly, yes.
Jack wants to know, did Steve front that research of the luck table? I think that's the luck index that we discussed yesterday when you brought up the
How are you
FAE.
supposed to take a table about luck seriously?
Yeah. Well, you had a good story, a good anecdote about the
No, I
89
know.
season.
But how are you supposed to? How can you quantify? You like that one, Chip?
Yeah,
Quantify.
very good. You've been
How
working
do
on
you
I
that.
love
quantify
how
luck?
Stevie thinks quantify is a big word.
I never said it was a big word.
Well, you seemed impressed that you dug it out of your
I
vocabulary.
just turned to chat and said that. I like that word. Didn't I?
I did. I like this
Just
word.
because we got after you yesterday, you try anything you can do to
Yeah,
try.
he's been chopping.
He thinks
Oh,
that's
okay.
a big word.
You guys
He
can
thinks
give
that.
it, but you can't take it. I see
Oh,
how
you
it
know-
is.
oh, you know what it is?
I'll give you a big one.
He's going back to
Do you want
DC
a- do you want a-
tonight.
Do you want a big word?
Yeah, uh-huh.
Supercalifragilistic. What's the big one for you? How'd you like that one?
Look at Mary Poppins over here.
Aye.
He's going back to
Underlay,
DC
underlay,
tonight.
underlie.
How do you spell that?
UUMDDDDLIE. Underlay, underlie. You all right?
Oh, yeah, this is my last extra time for a while, and I have to say,
Oh dear.
Ah, boy. Well, that's... Anything else? Is that it?
nope.
I was
Nothing
short.
but, nothing
Tell
but
you
tying the ties.
You in a hurry? Oh, you got a flight
Oh,
tonight?
he does. He does. Oh,
Right, I got-
let's stay on. Let's talk some more.
Oh, wait a
Let's-
second,
Let's
wait a
talk some
second.
more about anything.
Hold on.
No, no,
Seb's
no, no.
getting hold on. Seb's getting a flight. Actually, the longer we keep this going,
Yeah.
No,
Seb's getting a flight tonight. Allegedly, it's 7:40.
You want to see the boarding pass?
That don't matter.
Bradley.
That don't matter to us one bit.
We got
Right.
two
Any other
shows
extra
this day.
time? Any other
He's
extra
got
time
no
to try
chance.
to wrap it up?
You'll be catching an
Hey,
Uber back to
It's
DC.
a two-show day. It's a PVL
Hey,
special.
You can stay at my
Uber.
house tonight if you want.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't mind. You can
Okay.
go.
All right. All right. And at this rate, I think I will be hanging
I'll
with the
phone- hold
Nichols
on.
this evening. Yeah.
Hold
yeah.
on, I'll get
Make
the
sure
list.
it's okay. Make sure it's okay. I don't want to cause any trouble.
Eleanor, yeah, can you make that bed up? Is that the spare room? Aye, you better get the
Move the dogs.
get the blankets.
Yeah,
on.
move the dogs.
Yeah,
Send
get
the
the
dogs
blankets on,
outside.
yeah.
Seb's
Yeah,
coming around.
Throw the dog's basket on the end of the bed. All right, yeah, all right, okay, bye.
Wow.
Ah.
So hospitable, Stevie. I appreciate that. Thank
What else
you.
we can talk about? I'm sure
No,
we
no,
can
no.
talk
I
about
don't think there's more to talk about. The show, despite my absence, will continue tomorrow, I'm told. Shock, will you guys be back?
I have a feeling you'll be here.
Oh,
Roll
yeah.
the-
I
I
have
have
a
a
feeling.
flight to catch.
I have a feeling you catch a no flight.
I'm back. I think Shaq's going on vacation, eh? Go on.
I may not be here tomorrow.
Where are you going?
No way. I'll be at
Ah, you
home.
good
I'll be
somewhere.
at
He's
Oh,
home.
going to
no.
Kadooment.
Oh, you're not wrong.
After 12 years, Manchester City and Joe Hart are going their separate ways. The goalkeeper signing a 2-year deal to go to Burnley now. Stevie Nicol here with me for this one. Stevie, with all due respect to Burnley, would you consider this as a fall from grace for Joe Hart? Because 31 years old, and that you can say is still relatively young, especially for a goalkeeper.
No, I wouldn't say it's a fall from grace now. I think it's a couple of years ago that he had a fall from grace. You know, 1 minute he was the best thing since sliced bread at City. He was England's top goalkeeper. Everything in the garden was rosy. And then, of course, Pep came to Man City, and it all fell apart.
So it's just Pep?
No, I don't think it is just Pep. I think Joe, although Pep didn't fancy Joe still went on loan to Serie A and had an opportunity to show that he was capable, and he didn't. He went to West Ham last year on loan as well, and I don't think he did particularly well there again. So, you know, Pep was the person that kick-started this fall from grace. But at the end of the day, it's down to Joe because he hasn't performed with the opportunities he's had since, and he's going to have a struggle at Burnley. Burnley has signed him.
They have some injuries right now to their goalkeeper,
and
so this might be a welcome addition.
That's why they're signing him.
But other than that, you don't see him overtaking any of them.
He will start. He will be number one at the start of the season. But then when Pope's fit, when Heaton's fit, if Joe does what he did over the last couple of seasons, then he will very quickly find himself on the bench again, and very well might stay there for most of the year.
So this is just an overall fall of grace for Joe Hart then?
Yes.
Well, what a tangled web we weave. Sorry, Joe. Indeed, that's definitely not what he would like to hear. Stevie Nicol, thank you so much. Always a pleasure. Continue tracking to see how Joe Hart does indeed do at Burnley right here on ESPN FC. A new Premier League season is upon us, and the time in the transfer window is ticking away, yet it doesn't seem to bother a certain team. That team right there, Mauricio Pochettino's Tottenham Hotspur, because they've yet to bring in any new signings. Stevie Nicol, how much of a cause for concern is this?
Huge, absolutely huge. Spurs finished third last year because that's where they probably deserve to be. So if you're a Spurs fan, you're looking for them to take a step forward. In order to take a step forward, you have to add to the squad. You have to try and add to the starting 11, but you have to add quality. And so when you do absolutely nothing, why should you finish any higher than third? So if I'm a Spurs fan, I'm a worried man. And I'll say something else. At the start of this season, it's going to be really difficult for Spurs because they had 9 players who were involved in the last 4 of the World Cup. That means those players will not be 100% fit and sharp and ready. They're also moving into a new stadium shortly. They've got so many problems. No players, no new players, a lot of players not ready for the start of the season, and they're going to move into a new stadium as well. Everything is piling up against Spurs, so how are they supposed to be better than they were last year?
Well, in another view that I think a lot of people, well, some people rather, I don't want to say a lot, that are applauding Spurs and Pochettino for is the fact that they seem to be stronger as a unit. His faith in the unit that they have and that consistency, consistent top 3 finishes in the last 3 seasons, and just confidence in the current squad. Is that not something that you applaud or see as a light at the end of the tunnel?
Listen, if you want to be in the top 4, because basically that's what you're saying. If you want to be in the top 4, then they're fine.
Is that their expectation for this season? Do you think it's enough, or they should be winning silverware?
They've done absolutely nothing to suggest that they want to progress. Yes, they have a good squad. Well, they've got a better than good squad. They've got a solid unit. Everybody knows exactly what they're doing. You know exactly what you're getting from Spurs. But you're not getting you're not getting a Premier League title. So if Spurs fans are quite happy with Levy doing nothing but having a strong squad and finishing in the top 4, then the job will be done again.
I'm not sure.
Nothing else.
I'm not sure. I think there are some cries for silverware indeed. We'll see how much that they can last right here. Thanks so much, Stevie. We'll continue. Stevie.